From Creamer Media's Policy, I'm Sashni Murli. Author Harry Karma joins me to discuss his book, 1,000 Tales of Johannesburg. Without giving too much away, can you tell us what your book is about?
It's about Johannesburg. It's 1,000 Tales of Johannesburg. Not literally 1,000 tales, but it is a telling of various stories of various individuals, various communities in Johannesburg over its 126-year history. The book starts in 1882, pre-Johannesburg on the Highveld in the Boer community, and it ends just after the xenophobic violence of 2008.
Why did you decide to write such a book with a specific focus on Johannesburg?
I don't really know. I live here. I think the title was... I first had the idea of the title, and that's why I wrote it. And I've always been fascinated by Johannesburg. I mean, it's such a weird place, you know, compared to other world cities. It's such a melting pot, and it's these sort of post-colonial spaces existing alongside colonial and sort of first world spaces. So it's a very interesting city in that sense. And at the same time, it embraces all those parallel little universes in society. And I wanted to investigate that, to interrogate that, in this, how various individuals, how various societies experience Johannesburg.
With the recent xenophobic events in the country, why do you think this book is important at this time?
Well, sadly it is. I was hoping at the time in 2008 when I was writing about it that it would be a one-off event, but it seems that it's a recurring thing. I must say that there's more willingness on the part of government and of other people and normal people to engage with the questions around xenophobia. Whereas in 2008 it was treated as an apparition that nobody understood and no one seemed prepared to contain. There now seems to be a strategy or a philosophy in place to deal with it. And hopefully that sort of will eventually resolve the situation more effectively.
You intertwine facts with fiction. Why is that?
I think, you know, fiction, what I like about fiction is that it can tell truths about that documentary or non-fiction can't tell. So that's what interests me about fiction. The other thing is it's very much situated in the physical space of Johannesburg, and I felt that it was important to contextualize and depict those spaces as realistically as possible. And one way of doing it was like setting it in the history, in a specific history and time.
What is the central theme of your book?
The central theme? I don't know. I think it's about belonging and not belonging. The sort of the dichotomy between those two things. And then this odd thing that we have in Johannesburg, that our parents have been here for 120 years, and many of us don't quite feel at home here, or it's a very odd place, you know. Sort of it is an immigrant city on so many levels, you know. So many communities have been here for so long, be it the Hindu community, the Chinese community, the Afrikaans community, the Anglo community, rural African community, the Chinese community. We all seem to we've never made the place our own in a funny way, or we made it our own on our own terms. And that's also very interesting, was these little communities that exist alongside each other. And then the very nature of Joburg. It used to be, even Joburg always was very concentrated along the reef, the gold reef, and sort of later on the railway lines. It was spread alongside from east to west, West Turffontein, East Springs. It was spread about 5 kilometers wide, and then this little island that was called Soweto that led it south, and the rest, it was very contained. And despite that, the city has retained like what I like to call a dorpiness, a little townness. Life in Lenasia is very different from life in Park View. Life in Soweto is very different from life in Springs. Life in Florida is very different from life in Krugersdorp. We all have this little, it seemed to have retained the sense of a small conglomeration of little dorpies that sort of linked together. And that sort of makes for interesting stories because there are so many so many things going on at the same time alongside each other.
What are some of your favorite things about Johannesburg?
I don't know. The weather, as everyone says, the best weather in the world. We have something ridiculous. I wrote a thing for for an overseas publication recently, and I did some research, and we have a ridiculous amount of sunshine days, something like 330 days a year. It doesn't feel like it right now with the rain going on, but we have this wonderful weather. I like the way that Joburg has always looked after people. It's always embraced communities, whether it was, Chinese that arrived from the Eastern Cape in the 1890s, or whether it was Zulu people arriving in the 1890s, or whether it was Jewish immigrants arriving in the early 20th century, whether it's Nigerians arriving in the early 21st century. Joburg has always found a way to accommodate people and look after people. And I love that about Joburg, is that you can connect so that there's so many things happening. I think that's what actually makes it a world city ultimately. It's a sense of attracting people. I've heard Nigerians calling it the New York of South Africa. I don't know how true that is, but it is a metropolis in the true sense of the word. That it's a space where a lot of people can function and operate and find space to operate.
Are your characters based on people you have actually encountered?
No, not really. No, not at all. It was based on. There were situations that I wanted to explore. There were types that I wanted to explore. But no, not at all. But obviously there are sort of walk-on parts by real people like Nelson Mandela and Gandhi and, historical figures. But they just like incidentals in the book.
Tell us about the inspiration behind the book's cover images.
It was designed by Joey Hi-Fi from Cape Town. And I gave him a brief and I said, please, I want a book about Joburg that doesn't have any of the two towers on it. And Joey went off and he read the book and he picked up a lot of the themes in the book, the theme of architecture, the theme of modernism, the theme of violence, the theme of history. And he's created this wonderful layered texture of various elements. And in a way, the way that the book sort of, the storyline of the book emerges very slowly. It develops like a photo at the bottom of a pool of developing flood. The book sort of respects that and speaks to that it's not immediately clear what's going on and how things are fitting together. But in the end, it does come together quite holistically.
In the past, you have written plays such as The Bram Fischer Waltz, as well as novels. What can we expect from you in future?
Well, I don't know. I'm opening a new play in Cape Town this weekend, so that's very much on my mind. And yes, after that, I don't really know. I'll see what comes my way. Stories have a way to report themselves when you least expect them, and I'm waiting for the next one.
That was author Harry Kama discussing his book, 1,000 Tales of Johannesburg.